SGPC stands for the Shiromani Gurdwara Parbandak Committee, the SGPC. It's based in Sri Amritsar. Now, they have their own YouTube channel, which is dedicated to broadcasting live Gurbani Kirtan. So the SGPC itself, it's the foremost organisation of Sikhs. It was established in 1920. That was obviously during British colonial rule. And it's governed under the provisions of the Sikh Gurdwaras Act of 1925, which was brought in, of course, by the British colonial overlords to help administer all the Gurdwaras around India at that time. The real horrific sort of part of this story is it broadcast a video about where it actually mentioned the 1984 Sikh genocide. Of course, the genocide that occurred after the killing of Indira Gandhi in revenge for the dreadful attack on the Harmandir Sahib earlier that year in 1984 in June. So the genocide then occurred in November. And during that genocide, of course, tens of thousands of men, women and children were murdered in cold blood. Not just murdered, they were tortured, they were set alight, women were gang raped, children were massacred, and women and children were actually murdered in front of their whole families, etc. Again, it was a horrific time, and it is a stain on Indian history. And of course, many of the perpetrators still remain free today. But of course, in this video, it was briefly mentioned, the genocide, and they did refer to some of the shaheeds, some of the martyrs of the resistance. Of course, what followed during the 1980s and 90s was this period where the whole generation of young Sikhs in the Punjab were extrajudicially murdered. Hundreds of thousands, potentially, were just disappeared. And of course, as a result of that, the Sikh community had no alternative but to try and prevent this, stand up and try and defend themselves. And in return for that, they were called militants and terrorists, etc. Of course, it's the narrative written by the Indian state. Anyway, during that time, there were many shaheeds, many martyrs, and of course, this video referred to some of these shaheeds. As a result of this, their page was taken down. What is so controversial about the Sikh genocide that if you even mention it, that your channel is taken down? Now, the page was quickly reinstalled because, of course, there was a massive backlash. But it's just the way that the page was removed without any warning reinforces a lot of concern of Indian nationalist influence on social media and online content platforms.